All right, a good Wednesday to you. Thanks for finding us here at Fox 26. It's the time of day in which we give you the tropical update. I'm meteorologist John Dawson, and we've got some news to report in the tropics. We, of course, have been watching an area of disturbed weather in the Caribbean. Yesterday, the National Hurricane Center identified that as Invest 99L, so they got all the computer models running on it. Hurricane hunters were scheduled to fly into that today, and now, this afternoon, the Hurricane Center has said, let's go ahead and label this as Potential Tropical Cyclone 19. That way we can kick out all of our products such as a forecast cone and all the other watches and warnings and things that kind of go along with that. So that's why they have these steps that they have built into their procedures so that we can stay informed and make sure everybody knows what's happening tropically speaking. So just this afternoon, the National Hurricane Center now giving this area the title of Potential Tropical Cyclone 19. All expectations are that it will become Sara. That's the next named storm. And at this point, looking to stay at tropical storm strength, potentially. There's still going to be some question marks that are all kind of wrapped into this. In the long term, there could still be a hurricane out of this, and we're sort of going to be able to have sort of a discussion here and dive into all the finer points. But what I really want you to notice when we look at this forecast cone is notice how tight together these icons are right here. Each one of these represent a 24-hour period. So I've had to really stack up the times here because it's such a close pattern, okay? So here we are Thursday. Tomorrow, here's our first time Thursday at noon, and then we are only going to move a little bit further in a 24-hour period. And then look, we're even moving less in a 24-hour period. And then again, just inching along, just wandering, just sort of hanging out. And then eventually we go from Sunday, this icon that's furthest to the left here is Sunday, and then we shoot all the way to Monday, and we've covered a lot of distance very quickly. So the scenario here is we just don't have a lot of steering currents that are down here in this part of the Caribbean right now until we get to Sunday. And then Sunday, all of a sudden, we get a lot of movement happening, a lot of help driving this tropical system. And again, we're looking at this point, tropical storm strength for most of that time period, or for sure this entire time period as we're looking through Monday now for the next 5 days that we're going to be looking at the forecast track here for, again, what eventually is going to become Sara. So right now this is Potential Tropical Cyclone 19. Maybe we could just shorten it and call it 19 if we want to. And this is where we're going to end up when we get to Monday. And what we'll see here when we look at some of our computer modeling in a moment, this is going to continue to track across the Yucatan Peninsula and into the Gulf of Mexico. And that is why all of the U.S. coasts or Gulf coasts are needing to still kind of take a look here on what's happening. Although I don't think here in the Houston area we're as concerned as the eastern portions of the Gulf, but we're all going to be keeping an eye on it for sure. So as I mentioned, that next named storm on the list is going to be Sara, and right now 19 is the label that we're giving it, Potential Tropical Cyclone 19. This is a system that we've really been tracking all the way through the Caribbean, and now beginning to see that trying to get a little bit more organized. Notice how that center of circulation is still not really all in the middle of all of the storms and the rain that's associated with that. We need that to kind of take place in order for the real strengthening to begin. So it's a little bit more time before that's going to happen. It'll look a little bit more organized as we move through the next couple of days. I think we're going to see that. A lot of fuel, a lot of warm waters to help this growth taking place. There were a little cooler waters here for a while, but now we're getting into some very warmer waters where we're looking at the mid to even maybe the upper 80s for some of those sea surface temperatures that are out there, and that's going to continue to give it the potential to even grow stronger. I talked about some of those steering currents. So right now what we're looking at is some high pressure in the vicinity of Florida and the Bahamas. That clockwise rotation that goes around that is sort of helping to keep everything down to the south. So here's that cluster of storms. Remember that low pressure is a little bit to the east of that cluster of those storms. So everything is going to have to kind of stay down low in latitude to the south. And then this high pressure system is going to retreat a little bit. It's going to weaken a little bit. And then that's when it's really going to get pulled up by this high pressure a little bit faster. And it's going to make that shoot into the Gulf of Mexico. Fortunately, a lot like what we're seeing right now, this drier air, you see that boundary moving right through the Houston area. That's a cold front that's moving through right now. We're going to have a very similar setup like this with high pressure a little further to the east, cold front moving into the Gulf of Mexico when this Sara will be entering into the Gulf of Mexico. And that's why I'm not as concerned here in Houston that Sara would try to make it all the way there. It's going to get kicked out again over to the east. We'll see if it maintains its strength. It will also be battling this drier air, in the week when it begins to arrive. So the Monday, Tuesday time frame is when all that's really going to start unfolding, and we'll see what ends up happening. That's why I say if you're in Florida or you have folks in Florida that you're care about, those are the ones that are going to need to just keep monitoring everything, keeping an eye on it as this continues to unfold. And as we've talked about, that forecast track is going to very much match our computer modeling, as it's just going to keep everything down to the south, and then we're going to jet up there across the Yucatan Peninsula and really speed up quite a bit as well. So let's take a look at the two main computer models that we've used over the years. This is the European model, and you'll see pretty much what we've been talking about, this swirling, this hanging around. Now here's the really current, the facts that we know we're concerned with is going to be the life-threatening flooding for parts of Central America that are going to be happening. Like I said, that long-term forecast, will it go to Florida? Won't it go to Florida? We've got days and days to kind of keep up with that. But in the short term, by the time we get to this weekend, we know that Sara is going to be cranking out a lot of rain. Certainly the possibility for some damaging winds as well, but Honduras, Nicaragua, even Belize, these parts of Central America are where we're concerned with that life-threatening flooding that's going to be taking place. And as we move through the weekend, again, it's just hanging out here over and over, giving those showers and storms. And then here's that quick movement to the north, into the more of the west and to the north, and then eventually it gets across the Yucatan Peninsula. All of the question marks begin to pop up. Do you see how we took sort of a right turn and started heading towards the eastern portions of the Gulf? Low confidence in exactly how that's going to unfold. But when the European model and the American model, the GFS, are showing the exact same thing, there is some confidence, there is some reason to believe that maybe that long-range model is more likely to happen than others. We know with Rafael, though, that those longer-range models that were similar to this, where we saw it in the Caribbean, and then what was it going to do when it got 5 days out in the Gulf of Mexico, those didn't all pan out. So I would expect that there is still some room for error, and there's still cause for keeping an eye on everything with this. So here again, this is the GFS model. Here's that swirl. There's that tropical storm, possibly a hurricane. There's all of that rain just hitting over and over again, really focusing on Honduras probably more than Belize, but certainly getting some of that activity across the portions of the Mexico-Yucatan Peninsula. And then here's that broader area of circulation. Once it gets into the Gulf, there's still some definitely organized storms, but we have those questions once again. What exactly is it going to do and the timing of it and that sort of thing. So a lot of confidence, though, that we're seeing the Central America is certainly going to have some cause for concern. There is going to be, again, close enough to that tropical storm or hurricane wind speeds that they've gone ahead and issued some hurricane watches and not just all tropical storm watches. So that means within 48 hours, we can expect to see the potential, at least, for some hurricane force winds along that northern edge of Honduras. And we've got the tropical storm watch in place for Nicaragua, and so we kind of continue to see those will be changing over to warnings as we continue to move through the next 24 hours or so. All right, so I hope you've been continuing to follow us throughout the hurricane season, keeping our updates coming to you. Fox Local is a great way to stay informed on our tropical updates. Maybe you're also using YouTube. Maybe you're using fox26houston.com. You'll get a lot of content, though, on Fox Local that is not just these tropical updates. You're going to get Mondays with Mike, who's always talking about what's happening in the tropics when there is something going on. And then, of course, my hurricane gear tests are a great way to prepare as well. Now, a little bit more of a focus here on Southeast Texas. We are really enjoying the transition that's taking place this afternoon as we're feeling that drier air. Those winds have shifted out of the northwest. We're not seeing anything on the radar at the moment. I keep the potential there, but at this point, I think our rain chances are going to be pretty low. It's going to be staying well over to our east where the showers and storms are. So we'll sort of have this front slide on through a little bit quietly. It's not going to come roaring through. We're not going to see dramatic changes in winds or temperatures, but what we're left with is some very pleasant weather for the end of the week. So look for those temperatures in the low 50s when we're waking up tomorrow morning here across the Houston area. A lot of sunshine and some breezy, a little breezier winds than what we've seen again out of the north into the northwest, and that's really going to make us begin to feel a little bit more like some of these fall and winter times are going to be coming right around the corner to us. Count it down if you got some big Thanksgiving plans. You haven't got those plane tickets bought yet, or your hotel reservations, or you haven't checked in with mom or grandma. Get it all done and make sure you're ready for the Thanksgiving holiday. And then, of course, from there, the end of 2024 will be here before we know it. So really focusing on some fantastic weather to end the work week on Thursday and Friday. Those high temperatures will be in the 70s, all that sunshine, all that drier air. The weekend is really the transition period when we start to bring back in more humidity. We get these temperatures back up into the 80s. Our mornings are much milder, and then we'll look for some rain chances to return. At this point, I'm not expecting any sort of stormy weather, but certainly some showers, an embedded heavy downpour kind of mixed in with some of those rain showers as well later in the day on Monday and Monday night, and then slowly kind of tapering off as we move through the day on Tuesday. And then that front will be a little bit stronger that's coming at the end of the week. We'll definitely have some cooler temperatures for a longer period of time if everything kind of goes on track as expected there.